Welcome to this day with Universalist Fellowship. Welcome to this house of peace. Welcome to this time for worship and reflection. Welcome to this place where you can deepen your faith, challenge your ideals, and agree or disagree with respect and love. Welcome to this sacred space. My name is Gary Forbes, and I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territories of the S'Klallam and Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you're visiting today, I saw some visitors. I offer a special welcome and invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. We do have a newcomers table near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. Welcome to you all this morning. We're so glad you're here. There are no announcements here. I have something here, but first of all, happy Pride Month, folks. And next Saturday, you have an opportunity for two different events. Courtney Campbell, a troubadour, will be here with a kids' concert at 2 p.m. and a concert in 6:30, which I guess is also open to all ages. There are little flyers outside on the table, just outside the sanctuary, if you'd like to take a look. And I know Larry Morell has more information if you have questions about this show. There's Larry. So, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
Thank you, Nonesuch. That was gorgeous. What I loved about that was just I was reminded that tension actually can create beautiful music. Our opening words this morning are contained within a very short and a very wise sentence from Eleanor Roosevelt. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dream. And we light the chalice this morning with these words from Erasmus: "Give light, and the darkness will disappear of itself." And there's going to be a little bit of a different deal from your order of service right now. There is no time for all ages, but I decided to throw one in just for fun. Since we all have an age, right, and we're all here gathered together. Today's sermon, or today's talk, is going to be about neighbors, essentially. It's called Mending Wall. And I thought, what a fun exercise if we practiced neighborliness, like Mr. Rodgers. And this also was in response to a congregant from another UU congregation who really misses, from her Christian upbringing, the passing of the peace during the services, during her service. And what the passing of the peace is a point in the service where people get up, walk around, shake each other's hand, greet each other with a smile and say, peace be with you. What I encourage us to do this morning, or what I invite you to do this morning, is to greet your neighbors. Let's take a minute and just greet who's sitting next to you if you want to rise up and go around and meet someone. But please try to meet someone who you don't know. And just say hello. Hello. This congregation is really good at passing the peace. It's fantastic. I feel very peaceful. I feel very neighborly. That was a great Time for All Ages. Thank you so much for participating. And now, Time for All Ages is going to move into the very dynamic portion of Time for All Ages. If those people along the aisle will rise and form an arch. And anybody who chooses to march through the Time for All Ages and get a feel for that vibe, you are absolutely welcome. Oh, now we please, oh, now we please, make the spirit of love surround you everywhere you may go. Come, now we please.
And now it's time for our opening song. So, number 65, if you're following in the hymnal, please rise.
Oh, did I skip one? No. We did that already. I think it's offering time, isn't it? We pause for a time of generosity and to receive, thank you. And to receive an offering to support the life and ministry of QUUF. The ushers will come among us to receive the offering, and additional ways of giving are projected. Please join me in the offering words. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Thank you, Nonesuch. This is the time set aside in our service for joys and sorrow. We recognize that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of those joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we are going to place this first stone, thinking in particular of our right as citizens and residents of the world's oldest operating democratic republic to gather peacefully and to freely and publicly express our thoughts and ideals and values, especially when those ideals and values expressed by this religious tradition, they're running counter to those who hold and exercise political power. And now within this congregation, we light this candle for Cher DeWeese, who had knee replacement surgery this past Tuesday. Cher has endured a year of challenging medical issues, and we are very happy that she is on the mend. Gesundheit. And we place this final stone, holding in our heart the joys and sorrows I've just shared, while thinking of other such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but still of very deep resonance. And I welcome you now into a time of silent meditation, a moment of reflection and prayer. A few weeks ago, I was at another UU congregation, and someone came up to me after the service and asked, how am I responding to the political situation that currently is unfolding within our country? And I gave it a little bit of thought, and then I said, I'm practicing my religion. I give that to you. And also before the reading, I want to say that this sanctuary is an incredibly important place personally, especially in Pride Month. I have two queer daughters, proud queer daughters, one of whom came out publicly right there because she had felt throughout her life in this congregation safe, secure, able to be herself, and she was eager to share who she was with this congregation. So thank you very much for helping raise a strong queer woman. This poem is by Alberto Rios, a brilliant American poet who lives on the border between the United States and Mexico. It's called We Are of a Tribe. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world, together. We are the tribe of eyes that look upward even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves, quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all of this, impervious to borders, fences, reservations. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are, in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fenced. Blue will not be a crime. Look up. Stay a while. Let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. I truly sense that we want to give a rousing applause, so let us do that for Nonesuch. So neighbors, that was a great passing of the peace this morning. I love that. And this morning we are going to work very, very hard on our relationship. We are going to work hard by deeply considering the wall that situates itself between us. We're going to work so hard this Sunday morning that we might pop little sweat beads, because we are going to be mending wall. We're going to be mending wall with poets and popes, politicians and pop songs, with rhetoric and rhymes, and we're going to start with the iconic American poet Robert Frost, who begins one of his most famous poems entitled Mending Wall with this line: "Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down." And yet listen to this wall of walls. Wooden walls, brick walls, stone wall, dry wall, sea wall, retaining wall, prison wall. Humpty Dumpty sat on a great wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Western Wall, Wailing Wall, Berlin Wall, Hadrian's Wall, Wall of Jericho, Wall of Jerusalem, Plato's Cave Wall, thrown in for the humanists, Great Wall of China, Vietnam War Memorial Wall, walled in, walled out, walled off, walled up. Is this too off the wall? Go to the wall, hit the wall, up against the wall, back to the wall, climb the wall, jump the wall, over the wall, tear down this wall. Balls to the wall. Are we trying to nail jelly to the wall? Fly on the wall, hole in the wall, writing on the wall, bouncing off the walls, banging my head against the wall. It's like talking to a brick wall. The walls have ears. If these walls could talk. Wall of sound, wall of water, wall of voodoo, wall to wall. So did that litany drive you up the wall? Do you feel like nailing my hide to the wall? Because I'm just throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. And as that great rock and roll band Pink Floyd sang, you're welcome to join me, all in all, it's just another brick in the wall. All right, you weren't rehearsed. We'll do it sometime later. So wall is one of the most defining structures and tools of our world, and it would be impossible to survive as human beings without them. Our very sanctuary is bounded by them. And consider the fundamental necessities of human life and human survival: food, clothing, shelter, and fuel. And for most of the people on the planet, the word shelter cannot be spelled without W-A-L-L. There's an artist in the world who thinks a lot about walls named Peter Wegner, who writes, quote, "A wall is both a fact and a facade, unmistakable and invisible, so obvious as to be mysterious." And I love that notion of something being so obvious as to be mysterious. And add to this declaration of obvious mystery a reminder by one of the giants of Western philosophy, Bertrand Russell, who wrote, quote, "In all affairs, it is a healthy thing now and then to hang a question mark on things that you have long taken for granted." Now, my guess is that most of us, most of the time, take walls for granted. And thus, this morning, we, together in this sanctuary, will hang a question mark on wall with one of Robert Frost's most famous poems, Mending Wall. And although this poem was written decades and decades and decades ago, as recently as, I believe, like 10 days ago, the New York Times had a guest essay about Mending Wall. So it has stuck with us over time. The poem itself, it's a touch longer than what I usually read from the pulpit, so please just stay with me and imagine. There are paper copies circulating throughout. Does anybody who has a paper copy? Wonderful. Does anybody need a paper copy? If so, find yourself a neighbor and share. And so in this poem, to kind of give you a preview, two neighbors are walking along their broken property boundary wall after a long New England winter, and they're picking up stones from the ground and they're returning them to their proper place on the wall, hence Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I've come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need a wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. There is so much going on in this multi-layered poem. Let's just review the high points before we move on. So after winter, a stone wall needs repair. The stones fell out of the wall for any number of reasons: heaving ground, hunters, woodland mysteries called elves. Two neighbors work together on opposite sides of the wall to situate the stones back into place. The process of repair, it's likened to a game. Stones are likened to loaves of bread or balls for playing. And at some point, for one neighbor, the wall becomes pointless, and he says so. And the other responds with an old wisdom phrase that he heard from an elder: good fences make good neighbors. And let's pause a moment here so I can publicly admit that I've always loved that phrase, and my neighbors are here in attendance today. And I find a lot of meaning within that. The phrase one neighbor learned from his father and then passed along to me and to millions of others and now to you. And I have for years believed in that phrase. I have lived it even. I think there's a common sense truth in a clear, coherent boundary that a good fence or a wall can define. It simply makes good sense. Now that said, it is an open question, especially in today's fractured politics, a politics that is in deep, deep need of mending, as to what qualities constitutes a good wall, or in the parlance of therapy, quote unquote, clear boundaries, all in the effort to create the good neighbor and the healthy relationship. Now, speaking of fractured politics and walls, Let's all do a brief time traveling exercise and go back into recent history, 9 or 10 years, when a candidate for the office of the President of the United States, someone who wished to become the chief executive for the world's oldest functioning democratic republic and the person to be responsible for the physical borders of our nation, said the following on the campaign trail, quote, "I will build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me, and I will build them very inexpensively. I will build a wall, great wall on our southern border, and I will make Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words." Now the southern neighbor, upon hearing this, responds, "Mexican people, we're not going to pay a single cent for such a stupid wall, and it's going to be completely useless." Now, in this real-life election scenario, the idea of wall takes on a life of its own, loved by the candidate's supporters who chant at almost every rally, "Build the wall, build the wall, build the wall." And is loathed and mocked by his detractors. But the idea of a great wall built by one country and paid for by the other, it goes global and even catches the attention of the sitting Pope at the time, rest in peace, who says, quote, "A person who only thinks about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian. This is not the gospel." Now, gospel means good news. And the good news of Mark tells us the story of the teacher in the temple being approached by a scribe who asks, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" And Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord, and you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, your mind, and all your energy. The second is this, you are to love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." So one of the core teachings of Christianity, espoused by the religion's namesake, love your neighbor as yourself. And then the wall candidate is elected president, even though the majority of voters chose the other candidate. This is a finer point of the electoral rules of our democratic republic. At the inauguration, a Baptist minister prays and evokes what he calls the Old Testament. Quote, "When I think of you, President-elect, I'm reminded of another great leader chosen thousands of years ago in Israel. The nation had been in bondage for decades, the infrastructure of the country was in shambles, and God raised up a powerful leader to restore the nation. And the man God chose was neither a politician nor a priest. Instead, God chose a builder whose name was Nehemiah. And the first step of rebuilding the nation was the building of a great wall. God instructed Nehemiah to build a wall around Jerusalem to protect its citizens from enemy attack. You see, God is not against building walls." Part of a prayer that opened the inauguration. That very prayer, back in 2017, quote, "God is not against building walls." So for the sake of argument, let's take that statement as true, and let's return to that wall between neighbors, and the poet saying, quote, "Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in and what I was walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down." And I just heard for the first time offense and fence, probably intended. So while the God portrayed in the quote-unquote Old Testament, more appropriately called the Hebrew Scriptures, may not be against building walls, there are also forces in the universe that wants walls down. And when those walls do come down, for whatever reason, we humans have the choice of whether to mend them. So while one version of God may not be against building walls, the humans who actually do the actual building, and perhaps more importantly, the mending, need to deeply consider why they are building and mending wall. And what we have arrived yet again at the creative tension that exists at the core of our being. Build up, fall down, mend. 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 This process has been happening since walls were invented. And to return to the poem, to return to the poem, the neighbors are following the tradition by mending wall, working on opposite sides in sight of each other. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top, in each hand like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, it seems to me, not of woods and the shades of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well, he says again, good fences make good neighbors. Now to me, a major lesson of this poem lies in that phrase, he will not go behind his father's saying, not beyond, but behind. And because the neighbor will not go behind, he's portrayed as an old stone savage, armed, moving in darkness. The kind of neighbor you actually might want to have on the other side of the wall. Now, to get behind an ancient wisdom statement or a father's saying, Happy Father's Day, is to examine origins to see whether what is being said continues to make sense, to make good sense, to make functional sense. Recalling that Bertrand Russell quote, it is a healthy thing now and then to hang a question mark on the things you have long taken for granted. Now, this is exactly what is called for in the healthy practice of Unitarian Universalism, to go behind the traditional sayings, to go behind the accepted teachings, to hang question marks on them, and to see for yourself whether the so-called wise words continue to be wise. Because some of the world's wisdom might have a shelf life. Some ancient wisdom might not be able to withstand the complexities and speed of the modern world. And to close, I invite you to rattle this question around in your big brain, hold it close to your big heart. If our denomination, Unitarian Universalism, were given the task of creating and protecting the borders of our country, what would we build? What would we create? Whatever it would be, I know that the first item on our to-do list after it got out of committee would be to incorporate the prefix co, and rather than simply create, we would co-create with our neighbor whatever was going to be between our respective countries. And when we did get together with our neighbor, we'd ask to get behind the why of our mutual border. And the meeting would begin where the poem begins. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. What is that undefined something, neighbor? Let's figure that out together. Let's build from there. And by the way, would you like some cheese and crackers? Amen. One of the most beautiful things that we can do as a congregation, as human beings, breathing air from a sanctuary, is to invest that lungful of air into singing. And so please rise as you're willing and able for hymn number 134, Our World is One World. Our closing words this morning, a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado, a very woke poem. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. And please join us for the chalice extinguishing words found on the wall. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.